Hey, everybody. My name is Lori, and I am usually your Voices of WIA show host. But today I am joined by fellow WIA team members. So, Nikki, please tell us what you do for Women in Apologetics.
I am the events director. So anytime we have a conference or the Everyday Apologetics webinar or any of our small meetups that we have in random cities around the United States, all of that, our team in the events department runs that. And we make sure all of that works smoothly and works to put together amazing teams to coordinate all of that.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikki. And Cassie, tell us what you do for Women in Apologetics.
Yeah, sure. I'm one of the social media assistants, so I just help with some of the schedule and make sure they work.
Okay.
And then I'm also the Clarity Over Chaos co-host with my friend Dave. So we do another podcast called Clarity Over Chaos as well.
Excellent. And our newest team member is Erica. Please tell us what you do for Women in Apologetics.
I am the newbie and I'm a writer on the team now.
Awesome. That's so great. So for those of you who are not familiar with us yet, Women in Apologetics is a ministry that is dedicated to educating, equipping, and encouraging women to defend their faith in Christ with confidence and with grace. And before we get started, we want to invite you to join our free email community where you will receive apologetics resources every week and enjoy email community-only benefits like exclusive digital guides or a discount to our annual conference. And you can sign up today by visiting womeninapologetics.com/email-community. So we're here today to talk about the pro-life movement in general, as well as the March for Life in particular. And joining us is a very special guest. Her name is Holly Snell, and she's the CEO of this very successful and incredibly innovative crisis pregnancy center in North Texas called Hope Women's Center. She is also a dear friend of mine, and she is dang cute. She is a rock star, and I am so excited that she is with us today. So Holly, thank you for coming and visiting with us today.
I'm honored. Thank you all.
Okay, so really quickly, Holly, tell us a little bit about what you do for Hope Women's Center.
Yeah. So I am the CEO along with my husband. We're kind of co-CEOs of Hope Women's Center. This is going to be our 20th year in operation, but my 10th year in being a part of the pro-life movement, serving and leading a pregnancy center. I never thought I would find myself in this situation, but it has turned out to be honestly the greatest honor of my life to serve the Lord in this capacity, to truly, we serve between 2,500 to 3,000 women a year. But altogether, it's over 5,000 individuals when you include all the boyfriends and partners and all of that. We just opened a new maternity ranch. We're building a dream center that's a national training center for all pregnancy centers across the nation. The Lord is on the move in our midst, and I am incredibly humbled and honored to be a part of it. It's a joy. It really is.
It's such a pleasure to just watch you do what you do. I'm telling y'all, her center puts the accusation that Christians only care about babies before they're born and they don't care about the women. It puts that whole accusation to rest. They have they have this expansive menu of services for women and babies. It's just amazing. I wish we had time to talk about it all. Maybe we'll get her back on another show to talk about that too. But okay, so for today, total transparency, I have voted pro-life as long as I can remember, but I cannot honestly say that I've been involved in the pro-life movement in any real capacity. And so I'm just going to put on my student hat, and I'm going to let you guys educate me on the March of Life in particular, so that if there are any viewers like me who maybe would want to get more involved, that they can learn too. So for those of us who may not be familiar with this annual event, Holly, could you tell us what is the March for Life? How did it get started? And how would somebody get involved in the future? Like when I hear about the March for Life, it's almost always after the fact. So I would not even, in the past, I've not even been able to make plans to go. So can you kind of just catch us up to speed on that?
I will do my best. The March for Life, it really is a peaceful and prayerful gathering of all kinds of people from across the country, affirming the dignity of human life. It began in 1974, 1 year after Roe v. Wade it came into play. And as a response to a Supreme Court decision, it was like people wanted to gather and begin to stand for life. And it's more than just a gathering, it's a witness. It's a witness of people coming together, standing for life, and witnessing that life matters and that women deserve better than abortion. Our culture is capable of compassion, truth, and hope, and we can do that without implementing abortion. They're so much better. So this is a time for everyone to kind of come together. I've been a part of this since I was a younger girl. My dad took a group of us when he was a pastor, and I remember being exposed to it when I was either late middle school or early high school. But I just remember just being so impressed by so many young people in particular who were coming together for this event. But they have speakers every year. There's music. It's a prayerful walk from the National Mall over to the White House. And you're walking past the Supreme Court and all these things that are happening. But it's profoundly sacred as you're walking prayerfully, quietly, and just in honor of lives that have already unfortunately been taken with abortion, but also you're standing for life. And you see people praying, people counting, the rosary beads, and there's all the different denominations that have come together. But honestly, there's something really special when the people of God come together, united for the cause of life. And it has done something to me every year, and I'll never forget it. And that's why I want to return as many times as I can.
That's really sweet. Okay, so for somebody like me who maybe would look forward to doing it in the future, Nikki, I think you've been too. Do either one of you have any tips for first timers? If somebody watching or listening decides, okay, I'm going to go, I want to be a part of this, what can you tell us?
I think the first thing from my experience was you have got to wear good shoes because you are standing and walking a lot. And there were a couple things that I was not prepared for that stand out to me, even though I was a teenager when I went. So even now, remembering back, this was a couple things that stood out to me was first, when, she was talking about you're walking in silence. Well, before it started, someone led in prayer, and there was this huge cheer from the thousands and thousands of people that were there. And then it went deathly silent. And it's a bit shocking. And I don't know if that has just continued, since I've been there, but everyone was so excited and filled with energy. And then it was just silent. You could hear noises of traffic and other people in the background, but from that cheer, thousands of people are there. And then suddenly there's silence, and it becomes very serious, and it impacts you in some interesting ways. And we also had pushback from others there who were protesting the march. And so I had not been exposed to that too much up until that point. And so some of that seemed very harsh to me and difficult. And as a teenager, I would always encourage others, especially now as an adult, encouraging teenagers to participate in their culture, in the life around them. And so to expose them to that, the way I was exposed to that was life-changing. And so come prepared with good shoes, a big smile on your face, prepared for how it might affect you, even though I'm not sure how you can prepare for that fully, but come prepared for it to affect you, and prepare for pushback from others, that you are there to stand your ground for that. And it might seem difficult, but it is an amazing experience.
I bet. Do you have anything to add to that, Holly?
A warm coat. You need a warm coat.
True.
It's almost every year. It's super cold. And yeah, I would add, the emotion that I felt, both the joy and the grief, when you are there amongst so many people, you joy surrounded by such a cloud of witnesses, really testifying to the importance of life, that we're all created in the image of God. But it is a little shocking to the system if you're not used to protesters and the way they are protesting. It's an interesting thing. But yes, comfy shoes, thick coats. But also, I'd love to add, there's all kinds of different events that are happening throughout that entire week. It's not just a march on Friday. there's events that are happening all week long that you can be a part of. There's banquets and dinners. You can meet with senators and talk with them about how they're voting and what they're seeing on the issues of life. But it's not just really a one-day event. It's an entire week long of so many things that are happening. So even if you can't be there on Friday, there are so many ways that you can get involved, bringing church groups and just raising awareness of all that's available to us that week.
That is really good to know. That's very good to know. Okay. This next question is really probably the $64,000 question. People really seem to struggle with why abortion is actually wrong. So what do each of you think is the biggest obstacle that people have to overcome in order to see this issue clearly? And Erica, since you haven't really gotten a chance to say anything yet so far, and you're the newbie, we'll just throw you right in. We'll start with you, if you don't mind. What have you seen? You said you engage with people on this issue. So what have you seen? What's the biggest obstacle that people have to overcome in order to understand that abortion is actually wrong?
Since postmodernism continues to influence even those who proclaim Jesus, and that has trickled into, I think, two primary concerns that I've engaged in discussions with others about. The first being the personhood argument. And once we can move past that, the bodily autonomy debate. And I mean, when we get into the bodily autonomy debate, that's where it's been most passionate, specifically with other sisters in Christ, more progressive-minded sisters in Christ. And I think it's so important just to come back to the fact that God speaks about our personhood in the Bible, and the fact that he knows each of us before we're ever even formed, which I think if you're proclaiming Christ and you are a follower of Jesus, that trumps everything. So with my friends and my family members who are not Christians, it is really coming back to the personhood debate, and then matters of bodily autonomy kind of trickle into the conversation after we move beyond that.
Okay, so the personhood debate, you're referencing the idea that the argument that people make that the baby isn't actually a person because it lacks sentience or the ability to breathe or the ability to survive on its own, and therefore, if it's not a person, then we can do whatever we want. Is that what you mean?
Precisely.
Okay. Cassie, do you have something to add to that? I saw you nodding your head.
Yeah, I mean, some of the more recent conversations I've had about this have centered around those things, but also this idea, I think you mentioned it, Lori, too, of really taking care of women and making sure that the women are cared for, because I think there's often the accusation of, well, this is all about the babies, but nobody cares about the women. And that's not true either, obviously. The Hope Center is proof of that. And here locally, we have CareNet, and there are other organizations all over the country that prove that wrong. But another obstacle in having those conversations is that often people who assume that Christians don't care don't actually, for some reason, know about these crisis centers. I've run into at least half a dozen women who are like, what is that? I've never heard of that. What do you mean there's a crisis center? What does that entail? And then when I start explaining it and describing it, and these are even a few Christian women I was speaking with, and they said, oh, well, if that exists, then absolutely, there's no reason for abortion. And so it's kind of getting that out there that, yes, these crisis centers not only exist, but they go well above and beyond in caring for the women, for the mothers, as well as the babies. I mean, there are counseling courses, financial management courses, courses about how to get and keep a job, how to deal with childcare, everything, parenting. There are a lot of these centers offer ultrasounds and actual healthcare options, or helping you find healthcare options. Like they offer so much more than just a sit down with someone who tells you not to abort your baby. Right. That's not what they do. And so getting women especially to understand that no, we love them both. And they're both very important to God. They're both made in his image. We love them both. We care for them both. And in fact, the last conversation I had, the woman opened with, well, women's healthcare is going away. As we always want to ask questions, what do you mean by that? And so I said, by women's healthcare, by women's health care, do you mean Planned Parenthood? And she said, yes. And so that was my opportunity, right, to talk about the crisis
Sure.
centers. And she'd never heard of them. So it's just, I think there's a lot of wrong information or lack of information. And as well as just this perception, for some reason, I think maybe the press has a lot to do with it, but that Christians just don't care about the women. And so, yeah, the idea of getting that out there and changing that perception is huge, I think.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And I'm like you, I don't understand why there's not more awareness of all the options that are available, because they seem to have popped up everywhere, especially since, the 80s and the 90s. They're kind of everywhere, and they do, like you said, they do so many things. So I'm a little puzzled myself. I don't really know the answer to that question, but Nikki, what would you think is an obstacle to why people really struggle with the idea that abortion is wrong?
I worked at a pregnancy center, a local one here, for a couple years. And one of the things that I heard the most was that they feel like they don't have any other option, that somehow society is saying that this is the only option for someone in your situation. And what I find very difficult about that is that there's this perception in organizations and companies that that your path in life will somehow be shaken up, or it will be derailed or something like that if you have
irreparably harmed.
that somehow your future is in danger if you have a baby. But there's a misunderstanding about the value of life and the future of children when you take that perspective, because companies are, if they support abortion or they're against more children, they are literally investing against their own future. They will not have future clients or future customers, or I think of companies that give to organizations like Planned Parenthood. There are even diaper companies that give to Planned Parenthood. I won't name any specifically because it changes from year to year, but diapers are literally investing against their own future, when they should be very excited when a woman is pregnant and investing in that, because that's a future employee for that company. That's a future customer client. That is the future of human society, by investing in this woman who is bringing life into their own company, their own organization, their own family, their own everything. So there's a misunderstanding of what that valuable life brings to the table. And it's causing people to think that by having a child, by childbirth itself, by even just being pregnant, that it somehow derails a successful future for them and for their family and their company and everything. And that's such a difficult thing to portray when society, to convince people of, when society is saying this is your only option. If you have this baby, your life is over. When it isn't. I remember only the beginning.
It's totally true. I remember when I got pregnant with my first kiddo, I remember telling somebody, I've been lied to. This being a mom thing is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And so I remember being shocked at how much I enjoyed it and how much it brought to my life. And I remember being sort of just really didn't expect that at all, but was quite pleasantly surprised. Holly, you're kind of the boots on the ground. What do you see? Why do people struggle so much with the idea that this is wrong? Do you have an opinion on that?
I do. And I think a lot of it starts with the church. I think pastors have given into some fear that they can't bring up the issue of abortion, even in churches, because I think their hearts perhaps are in the right place of like, oh, I just don't want to upset anyone. I don't want to trigger someone who's had a past abortion, or men who have paid for abortions. And I don't want to, basically pull that scab off that wound.
Right.
But in essence though, because they are not talking about it, we have people who are filled in our churches who have this past experience. I mean, we even know Planned Parenthood is reporting through the Guttmacher Institute that, it's such a high percentage that 2 to 3 out of 10 women or more have had abortion. And that means men, 2 to 3, 4 of 10 men have had or paid for abortions. And so
Right.
we have congregations filled with people who have this in their past, but because pastors are too fearful to talk about this from the pulpit, to stand on truth, we have all these people who aren't being set free from this sin, who don't know how to even talk to their good friends about it in church. I mean, we have so many volunteers and staff members who this is a part of their story at Hope, but would never want to talk about it at their church because they're scared of the shame that they might feel, because the pastors, again, aren't talking about it. People are avoiding this topic. It is a hot topic. And dear Lord, I am so passionate about this because there is so much freedom that is available. And if people only knew, this is not an unforgivable sin. But
Yes,
God is
amen.
just as eager and ready to forgive the sin as any other sin.
Right.
And so I feel like that is a huge hole that we're missing. We're just, because pastors are too scared to talk about it. But man, Lord, help us. Help us to be better communicators. And we're not saying that babies are more important than women. It's going back to what you all were saying earlier. It's both. We love them both. We want to be a voice for the voiceless, but we also want to stand up for that woman. We want to protect her. We want to give her good health care. And they're not getting that at Planned Parenthood. I promise you that. Because in fact, the Planned Parenthoods and the abortion clinics in the U.S., so many of them are sending their patients to us to clean up what they've messed up. And so let me tell you, like, we need to speak truth and love, and we need to be able to wrap our conviction with compassion. We don't want to yell. We don't want to scream, but we do need to be passionate about it, because I think that that's also what's missing. I was just on a call earlier today with a whole group for Missouri Right to Life. And what they were talking about is they're doing all of these questionnaires across the state and across the country. They're finding that those who are for abortion are way more passionate for abortion than those who are pro-life for life. What is wrong with that? Lord, help us. We're doing a really poor job at communicating the beauty that life is, and that God has created something so much greater for us. So that is one of the major obstacles that I see, is this just the church isn't talking about it. And it grieves my heart.
Yeah.
Can I jump
I
on
would
that
agree with
too?
that. Go ahead, Cassie.
Sorry, can I jump on that too? I think something that we also don't talk about enough is that this isn't a women's issue in the way that we think that it is. A major problem we have in this country, and we could go on and on for hours, so I won't, but it's the degradation of the entire family, right? And so we're talking about men too. We need men involved. We need male voices. We need these men to be more involved and courageous in standing up for this. And I know that there are some. I know that there are a lot. But behind so many of these women is fear, because they don't feel secure. They don't have the father involved. They don't have a partner that's willing to go through this with them. They don't have the man there that's willing to be the father and be involved. And so where is the breakdown there too? We need to look at that too. And so a lot of these crisis centers actually do that too. They involve the men in the parenting classes and in the financial management classes. And that's another thing that Planned Parenthood won't do, because they want this to remain a feminist thing and a women only problem, because that's the message, right? But it's not. If we look at the Bible, it's a man and a woman and their family. And we need to encourage the men to be more involved. Like you said, the pastors and these godly men to raise their voices, because we've told them for too long that this isn't their problem. But there has to be a man to be a baby, so it is their problem.
Right.
And it's not, and I say problem, I don't mean problem. But it is an issue that needs to involve them as well. And they do need to have a voice in this. And we need to stop telling them it's not their problem and that they're not involved. We need to get them more involved and encourage these men to stand up for their families, to stand up for these babies, and to take responsibility and get where we're encouraging the growth and the health of families. And it starts with this.
I agree.
That's right.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Which actually leads us to our last question, honestly. quite beautifully, I might add. What can we do on a practical level? Because now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned, there, of course, was this misunderstanding, if that's even the right word, that we were going to ban abortions across the country, which isn't actually the case. It simply returns the issue to the states to decide for themselves, state by state, how they're going to handle abortion in their own states. And so that gives us the opportunity, whereas you and I may or may not have much of a voice at the federal level, at the state level in our communities, we can have a much bigger impact. So what can we do? Does anybody have any particular ideas about how we can get involved on a practical level with the pro-life movement in that post-Roe kind of world? Holly, you want to lead us off?
I'm happy to jump in. I would say you just need to get involved locally. Don't negate how important that is. So it's supporting, yes, your local pregnancy medical clinics, your maternity homes, your adoption centers. It's the foster care, that's happening in your community. Those are all so important, and it is protecting life. It's volunteering, donating, mentoring. I know, like, as an example for Hope Women's Center, I mean, we have a myriad of ways. We have over 80 people who volunteer on a weekly basis at Hope, from men to women, all ages. So it's so important. And then also, I encourage everyone to engage the church. We need more people who will lovingly go to their pastor and leaders and say, hey, can we talk about this? Can we raise this issue, not just on Sanctity of Life Sunday, but can we talk about it periodically throughout the year? I just think that we need to make this more relevant conversation and more open conversation in our churches. And just be willing to have grace-filled conversations as well with our friends, with our coworkers. I never really encourage people going online on their social media and blasting their thoughts. We really don't win people that way, but you can win someone perhaps by sitting across, having a cup of coffee, and just sharing stories and gently, again, wrapping that conviction with compassion, just showing love and care for both the women and the child. And just, we need to stay prayerfully and civically engaged, or we need to find out what's happening. While, yes, there's the March for Life that's happening in DC, but there's also March for Lives that are happening across every state. There's one happening in Texas, and it's happening the same weekend. And so, I mean, there's a march that happens there, and you can meet Governor Abbott. He gets up and he speaks on this. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are happening on the state level, on your city level. There's just so many different ways you can get involved. So don't just sit on the sidelines. We all need to be involved in some form or fashion, but again, we just do it all with great compassion.
Yeah, I agree.
It's interesting because a lot of people don't realize all the different ways that they can be involved as well. So yes, if you have a hard time talking to people, that might not be a good fit for you, or if you're unsure about counseling or even helping just with the normal things that happen in the pregnancy center that interact with others. There's a lot of things that you can do. We had a lady who volunteered her time to come clean every night. She just swept floors, mopped the floor, fluffed all the pillows, dusted, those kinds of things. We had a lady who, as soon as she knew, okay, this woman is dedicated to having her child, and she's going to work through parenting classes, those kinds of things, she would make them a small baby blanket. I mean, just the littlest things that you could do that are just an inspiration to women who are making a good choice, or those who are still in the middle of making decisions. Right. There's so many options. We had an electrician who would come around and service all of our televisions that they used for the parenting classes. We had someone who would come around and bring snacks for our staff. And sometimes, that would work for the clients who would come in as well. But usually things like that would help you keep going. Providing water bottles. So we had an entire boutique where the parenting classes, they would earn points, and they could redeem the points in the boutique. And so people who donate to the boutique and who set all of that up and make it look like a little shop. And I mean, there's so many things you can do besides just the interaction with clients that can sometimes be intimidating. Sometimes it can be difficult. So many things. What are you gifted at? maybe go to your local pregnancy center and just ask, listen, I can do this thing. How can that help here? What can I do with this gift here?
Yeah, very good. Cassie, how about you? Anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of the care centers will reach out for help sometimes too. I know ours does, our CareNet, and they do a drive about this time every year where they, our church will get a whole bunch of these baby bottles and you fill them with your spare change.
Yeah.
And so you do things like that, and then you turn the baby bottle in, and it might be $3 worth of change, but it all adds up.
It all adds up.
And your kids can get involved in that. And so it starts to bring it to them that this is important. These babies are important. And yeah, ours has a boutique too. And what can you do? And at a bare minimum, it's not even really the minimum, but you can pray, just pray for your centers every day, because especially here, I'm in the Pacific Northwest and ours are literally under attack, receiving graffiti and all kinds of problems. So maybe it's going one day and offering to clean the graffiti off, whatever it is, pray for them. Pray for them, and then watch for those opportunities, because they will reach out through some churches as well.
Erica, you're next. What are your thoughts on getting involved locally?
I'm a really big advocate of interpersonal relationships and building through those relationships. I think our strongest influence is going to be in our sphere of influence, our immediate sphere of influence. And I'm one of the homeschool moms who was a WIA fan for many years. And I know that there are many probably watching and you're wondering, how do I get involved? Maybe I have a baby. Maybe I have a bunch of kids running around. Maybe we're a one-car family. It really, really starts at home for so many of us. And I think having that conversation, even with your children, we're not going to maybe talk about abortion specifically, but explaining, hey, maybe someone's pregnant in your family, so-and-so is pregnant, and maybe let's see what God has to say about babies that haven't been born yet, and starting the conversation and starting to help children understand the sanctity of life, even at a young age. And I started having those conversations with my children very young. We were in California at the time, and with my 3-year-old, she would ask a lot of questions. And at 3 years old, she understood, yes, this baby matters. Yes, this baby who's on the way is a person who is valued and who deserves to live and who deserves to have the chance to live a life and make their own choices. And I also think that conversations with the men in our lives is a really big opportunity as well. For the men in my sphere of influence, so many of them have wanted to disengage because they do feel like they don't have a say. And I think having the conversation helps men to at least be invited to shift their mindset and understand that when they took an oath to protect and to provide, right? They were also opting in to protecting and providing for those who are the most vulnerable. And in our world today, that would be the preborn.
Sure. Amen. Yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of men have fallen under that spell of no uterus, no voice. And that's not really true. They are allowed to have a voice, and they may not really realize that. It may take some of us to encourage them to have that voice. Well, ladies, we got to wrap it up. But thank you so much, everybody, for giving up some time this afternoon to have this conversation, because I just think it's so incredibly important and profound. So thank you for being here. For those of you who are less familiar with women in apologetics, we have so many resources for you. We have articles, videos, social media, quick guides, ebooks, courses, events, local meetups, merchandise, and a whole lot more. So to see what we have available, please visit our website at womeninapologetics.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.